Hi, my name is Jennifer Hackney Price. I work in a fly lab, and today I will be showing you how to make the fly food that we use in my lab. There's a lot of pre-packaged stuff you can buy out there. I'm going to show you some maybe shortcuts that will allow you to do this even if you're making it on a budget. What we're going to start with is mixing the ingredients for fly food. Again, you can get these in pre-mixed packs, but I like to make them from scratch for a number of reasons. First, you can get a lot of this stuff in bulk, which makes it a lot cheaper for you to buy. Second is you can mix as much as you want for as big of a class or as big of a lab as you have. So it makes it a lot more convenient to make different size of different fly food. So what we start with is the water. We want to pour about half of the water into the beaker at first. Get that mixing. You could also get it heating already at this point. And then we're going to start slowly adding the ingredients to this stirring water. So what I'm going to start off with is the cornmeal. And with this, we need to add 67.06 grams for every liter of food that we're going to make. So I have these pre-measured just because it saves a little bit of time. Uh, if you're working with this in a class, it's, again, a great way to save time. You could pre-mix all this food for your students. All they have to do then is add it to the water, cook it, and they're done. So this is the cornmeal. I have it pre-measured, so I'm going to start pouring that in. And you want to pour it at least a little slowly to avoid getting any clumps in there. And if you get some clumps, you just turn up the stir bar a bit to get rid of those. So I have 3 containers of cornmeal. Next, we are going to add corn syrup solids. So I like the corn syrup solids because it doesn't get into this ooey gooey mess like corn syrup does. But again, if you're on a budget, you can use corn syrup in place of the corn syrup solids. And it's just a 1-to-1 conversion. So 1 gram for every 1 milliliter of corn syrup. So I'm going to add the corn syrup solids. Again, I have a couple containers of this. Next, we're going to add the agar. This is what's going to help it set into that nice solid base to give the flies something to stand on. And with that, we are adding 5.29 grams of agar. Right. We also need soy flour. This is 9.18 grams of soy flour. You can order this from any kind of chemical manufacturer. You can also just go to the grocery store and buy soy flour, and it works just fine. So I'm going to add this. And again, I'm trying not to dump it all in at once because I don't want a big clump of food. That'll just make it take a little bit longer to get everything done. All right, and the last ingredient for cooking is going to be the yeast. Again, you could order the yeast from any kind of chemical company, or you could just go to your local grocery store and get whatever yeast they have available. It does not matter in the fly recipe, it all works the same. The one thing I would say is be consistent with whichever brand that you decide to go with. All right, so with the yeast, I'm adding 15.88 grams, and I'm going to pour it in slowly. And already it's starting to slow down a bit. I'm going to speed up my stir bar, and you'll notice as it starts cooking, it'll start getting thicker and thicker, and you might notice that your stir bar is slowing down a bit. In which case, again, just crank up the speed and make sure everything gets nice and mixed up without the clumps. The last bit we need to do before we let it cook all the way is to add the rest of our water. Remember, we just started with half of the water initially. We made sure there's no clumps in the food. Now we're going to add the rest of the water. Again, I've pre-measured this, so we want a total volume of 920 mils of water. So you're going to start with 500 mils, and then you'll put the rest in at the end once you've added the other ingredients. By the time all the other ingredients are added, you end up with 1 liter of fly food. The last step in cooking the fly food is to cover it just to make sure any little particles that are out there in the ether don't fall down into the food and contaminate it. So I'm going to get some aluminum foil. And again, nothing fancy about the foil. It's stuff you can get at your local grocery store. And we just want to make sure that's covered again so we don't have particles falling down in there. We will add some mold inhibitor at the end, so that helps to cut down on some of the contamination effects that we might see. But again, it's just a good practice to cover them to avoid getting as much stuff in there as otherwise might be. So once we have all of the ingredients mixed up in here, we want to make sure we heat it up. And as it heats, it will continue to thicken more and more. It takes about 20 minutes or so to get to that point. And during that, you want to make sure that you're looking for any kind of burning. So keep an eye out towards the bottom of the beaker and look for any kind of brown chunks that might be there. If so, just turn the heat down. Again, the flies don't care. So I've sped this up and I have a batch of food that's already been mixing for a while. It's already been cooking. And you can see that it has stopped moving, even though the stir bar is still in there. That's the sign that it is good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the heat. And I'm going to turn off the stir bar as well. Now we're to the point that we can add the propionic acid. Again, this is the mold inhibitor that will hopefully keep your fly food lasting quite a while if you store it in the fridge. Because we're working with acid, I'm going to go ahead and don my PPE. You want to make sure that you're wearing your gloves as well as your eye protection. It is a very mild acid, but again, you want to make sure that you pay attention to safety. Again, I've pre-measured the acid that we're going to use. So propionic acid, we're going to add 4.42 mils. I'm going to give myself a little bit of space here because I don't like working with the fly food as it's on the hot plate, so I'm going to give myself a little bit more room to work. So I'm going to move this over gently. This is going to be hot, so you want to make sure you have your oven mitts. And we're just going to remove it and set it on the bench. There are some protocols that say you need to wait for the food to cool down. In my experience, that is not necessary. You can add the propionic acid as soon as you're done cooking it. Give it a few minutes to cool, and then it's ready to pour. So I have my propionic acid all measured out already. Again, we're going to add 4.42 milliliters. Unscrew that. Add it to the mix. And you can stir this up any number of ways. Right before you pour it, I like to take a pipette and just stir it around. If you have a stir stick or anything else, you can use that to stir it up as well. So I do have a serological pipette here, so we can use this to stir it just to make sure that acid is mixed up in there. After you've allowed this to cool for a few minutes, then it's finally ready to pour into the vials. Once this fly food is done cooking, you've added the acid and allowed it to cool for about 5 minutes, then it's ready to pour. And there's several different ways you can pour it. If you want to be really precise with how much food you're getting into the vial, you can use the serological pipette, the same one you use to stir the acid in. If you don't have access to that, or you want to go maybe a little bit faster, you can simply use the pour spout on the beaker and pour it into the vials, estimating approximately how much you have in each one. Again, I've done the pouring process here for you, just so you can see what it looks like once the food has been poured and set. So I'm going to uncover this. This is my tray of vials. Each tray like this holds approximately 100 vials. It's a little bit more than that if you use the narrow vials. But this is what your food should look like when it's done. And so you can see that it's set in the vial. It's not going anywhere. Once you've poured it, though, there's one step that you still need to do, and that's to let it dry out. If you let moisture accumulate in this food, then you will get a lot of growth. You'll see a lot of food slippage where that food won't stay in the vial. Instead, it will fall right out. So in this case, you want to make sure you cover your fly food. We like to use cheesecloth. It lets the food breathe, but it also prevents other things from getting into the food. Let it sit out at room temperature for approximately 24 hours, and then you're ready to seal it and store it in the refrigerator. The last bit that you want to do after your food has had a chance to dry for 24 hours is to seal it and store it in the refrigerator. So you'll take back the cheesecloth. And I love to use Glad Press and Seal because it's a quick way to seal all of the vials at once. You simply spread out a bit. Tear that and then just smooth out the wrap so that it forms a nice seal for everything. And that'll keep your food from drying out too much as you store it in the refrigerator. I'm going to store this upside down. Again, I want to prevent any kind of moisture from accumulating on the food itself, because if you have that moisture, you put flies in there, they will get stuck in that moisture. So I like to invert them. So I'm just going to take a tray, same kind of tray that you use to store your vials in, put that on top and simply flip. Tap just to make sure everything's out. And there's your vial. So this tray is now complete. It is ready to go in the refrigerator or start using for fly work. Once your food is all set, then you can start using it for fly work. So it is ready now to transfer flies into your freshly made vial. The secret to transferring flies is to keep tapping on the original vial that has the flies in it. You want to tap down hard enough that it knocks the flies down to the bottom, not so hard that they get stuck in the food. So as you're tapping, you're going to take off the lid, simply flip it over into the new vial, and then you go right back down to tapping. Then you have a new vial in your hand, seal that up, and you now have your flies ready to go for whatever